Joining me now is Jonathan Emord. He's a constitutional law attorney. He's also the author of The Authoritarians, Their Assault on Individual Liberty, the Constitution, and Free Enterprise from the 19th Century to the Present. Jonathan, please don't rip off your microphone and walk away when I ask you this stupid question. I want you to explain to me, what exactly is the DOJ? What is the Department of Justice? What do they do? What does it encompass?
The Department of Justice, which is presided over by the Attorney General, is basically the attorneys for the government of the United States. They are to defend the laws of the United States and the Constitution, and they are to pursue justice, which is interesting because if they're asked to perform an act that violates the laws or the Constitution, they are supposed to refuse.
Okay, well, I mean, perhaps I'm crazy here, but it doesn't seem like they're refusing.
Right. It seems as though the Justice Department is interested in pursuing a political agenda rather than upholding the laws of the United States, upholding the Constitution, and acting as the attorneys for the government of the United States.
What is the DOJ's role as it relates to the president? What should it be? I guess I should ask, because all I've ever known, it seems like, is attorney generals who were the enforcers of the president, unless they're Republicans, and then that's another story entirely. But they should be separate because the president appoints them.
Yeah, they're not the president's private attorneys. They are the attorneys for the government of the United States. And as a consequence, there's a natural, almost inevitable conflict of interest that occurs whenever the president wishes to take an action that would violate statutory law or the Constitution. So rather than act in ways that defend the law, frequently we find, at least in the last several years of this administration, we find that of the last several months of this administration, we find that the Attorney General has been willing to defend, for example, the open border policy, even though it's directly a violation of the immigration laws, to uphold his position on critical race theory, to take the position that mandatory vaccination would not be unlawful, and so forth, despite the fact that these questions at a minimum, these issues at a minimum, are debatable. And more times than not, at least from my vantage point, I would argue these are unlawful or unconstitutional executive actions, certainly actions that could not be taken without a law passed by Congress, because at a minimum, it violates the separation of powers.
All right, there's a headline here from the Daily Caller I thought was interesting. Biden DOJ has instructed the Treasury to deliver President Trump's tax returns to Congress. How is that legal? What are they doing? What are they talking about?
Well, they're responding to a subpoena for that information. And again, I would think that delivering someone's personal tax returns to the Congress would offend the statutory law, which affords taxpayers privacy, certainly in the absence of any determination of illegality. And this precedes any action by the state of New York or by any other authority that would hold the president's actions unlawful. And so it's precipitous. And I think that it's also indicative, again, of the politicization of the Department of Justice.
Jonathan, I do have to ask also about China. There have been several high-profile cases recently there's one, a Chinese PhD student was accused of spying for the Chinese government, dropped. We have these kids that were clearly Chinese military, DOJ dropped it. Why in the world would the DOJ be playing nice with China? They're very clearly playing nice with China.
It's outrageous because the evidence is overwhelming of their complicity in spying and espionage activity and theft of intellectual property. There's quite an enormous amount of evidence that has backed this action in the first instance. It was no mistake that during the Trump administration, the Department of Justice pursued these matters. And, it begs the ultimate question, I think, is the political position of this administration, which has been to avoid conflict with China, even at the expense of our own national interests, in my view, is that now being translated into a Department of Justice policy of not prosecuting those who are engaged in espionage and theft of intellectual property on behalf of the PRC in our country?
Hey, thanks so much for watching the first on YouTube. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and like and subscribe. You heard me. Like it, subscribe. You'll get a lot more of it and a lot more of me.